for Kevin. So interesting. I want a treasure map tattoo to find myself. That's incredible. Somehow I still feel like I would get lost. I'm so excited to bring up this next person. They did give Campfire the privilege and the honor of speaking here once before, and I was unable to make it for health reasons, but I'm here tonight, and I'm so excited to welcome to Campfire an activist, an elder, and an icon. Please welcome Shane Wally.
I don't like to be tethered down, okay? Freewheeling, I've got a mic, I can dance about. I'm calling my outfit this evening British Schoolboy Hard Clash. The necktie has significance, which will come out in the story. The last time I was here was Mother's Day, and I told all the stories on my mother, the good, the bad, and the ugly. This time, this is a love story to Leslie Feinberg. And if you don't know who Leslie is, look them up even while I'm talking, it's all right. The other thing is my pronouns are ze, here, and here's. For the younger folks, you might call them neo pronouns, and I will grimace at you because I call them the OG pronouns. I've been using them since 2007. I first heard about them maybe about 1998, and so they've just always been a part of me. Now they're making a comeback, but I never left them. We've been together the whole time. So, I was born in 1961 to white parents who were Southern, Christian, and Republican. They're so proud of me. Actually, they are proud of me, were proud of me, they both passed away. But I grew up with a very strict gender rule book. I grew up with the girls' rule book with the ladies' addendum, right? The ladies' addendum is like, thou shalt only cross thine legs at thine ankles, and all the ways to be proper in how you eat and set the table and all those things. And I was told that if I didn't follow those rules, I could not be successful. Well, so a journey entailed, right? I fortunately came out as a lesbian in about 1984 when lesbian grunge was lesbian chic. So you could do the flannel shirts and the boots and, right, be a dyke and maybe be butch, but I never did butch well because butch often has this kind of chauvinistic thing to it that I was never so much a fan of. I'm a recovering second wave feminist. I've learned about intersectionality. I'm working on my fourth wave card. I never did girl or woman well. I failed lady school, and I was moderately successful. And I won't tell you my whole life story, but I ended up in 1990 in Ithaca, New York. I moved there because it had a communist mayor and very active softball leagues. Seemed like a friendly place. In about 1992, they started same-sex partner registration. And I was like, I'm not putting my name in a government book without getting anything from it that the next administration can then have all the names. So in 1994, I was working at Cornell University. I was smart enough to work there, not smart enough to go there. I was one of the most dreaded people on a college campus. I was the assistant textbook buyer. Faculty don't like you because they don't understand why you don't have their books because they didn't order them. And students hate you because expensive. Even expensive in 1994, right? I also was very active on campus. If there was a megaphone to scream about a thing, I was there. I was involved with the LGBT student group, which at the time was probably just the LGB-ish, no T student group. And we brought Leslie Feinberg and Minnie Bruce Pratt to campus. They had just written Stone Butch Blues and She-He, which She-He, that title now would probably get Minnie Bruce Pratt canceled. And in 1994, it was like, welcome, a book about that. It was basically short stories and poems about her love relationship with Leslie. It's a lovely book. Troubling time. So I don't know much about Leslie at that point. The internet's new. Al Gore had just invented it. Right, when you got onto it, it was this. No. So, I thought that Leslie was a lesbian with her lesbian wife. So I go to the auditorium, I sit down. Leslie has a very nice introduction, hopefully was introduced as an icon. Walks out onto stage in a flat top, gray double-breasted pinstripe suit, button-down collar shirt and tie, shiny shoes, and I was like, what is happening? Because again, in my head, I could hear my mom's voice say, if you don't conform to gender, you will not be successful. I'm like, okay, this person has written a book, which ended up being an award-winning book. I hadn't won awards yet. Was at an Ivy League adjacent school, could afford that suit, and a good barber. And I was like, that is success, my friends, right? So I listened with rapt attention to the conversation. The next day, Leslie came and signed books at the bookstore, and I had been asked to host. So I got to stand with Leslie and Minnie Bruce and have a conversation, basically try not to pass out or throw up on them. I bought the book, so I have a signed copy of Stone Butch Blues, cherished item. It may be signed to my ex. Don't care. So I read the book, I called in sick, I felt like I'd been turned upside down and dumped on my head, and I cut my hair in a flat top, I got rid of all my girl clothes. Drag queens in Ithaca, New York were very excited. I'm a big girl who has size 10 men's feet, which meant there were some Anye slingbacks that they were fighting. I was very fortunate that my ex, who's the person who brought me to Texas, worked in the tech industry in Ithaca, New York. She worked in the engineering department at Cornell. And so I had access to finances. So I was able to shop and turn over my wardrobe. And there was this place called the Bonton in Ithaca, which was kind of like a Macy's. And we would go into the men's department and they would be all hands on deck. Person changing wardrobe in flat top is in department. All hands on deck. Honestly, this tie probably came from that era. This is a Jerry Garcia brand tie. I have a bunch of them. For those of you who have known me later, I'm usually always in a bow tie. But for this, I started out in long tie land, and so I wanted to honor my humble beginnings. I also grew up with a mom that would not have let me out the house with the Clash. Like I would have either wore a solid tie with this shirt or a solid shirt with this top. Sorry, Mom. So that's part one of the story, maybe parts 1 and 2. Got to hear Leslie, right, talk about Stone Butch, do a reading, blow my mind. Got to be with Leslie and Minnie Bruce at the table. I also, because of my partner, was able to go to some really early trans conferences in 1995, 1996. There was a conference called the True Spirit Conference. It was in Maryland, and one of the years that I went, Leslie was the keynote speaker. And there's a book called Trans Liberation, I think, which has Leslie's speeches in it, and the speech from that day is in that book. So after the speech, Leslie very kindly, right, stood and waited for a line of people, so nervous, practicing our things in our head. Leslie, you changed my life. I can't believe it. Oh my God, what am I going to say to you when I get to the front of the line? Leslie Feinberg, you changed my life. I don't know what I'm going to do when I get to the front of the line. Leslie, anyway, so I had the thing going in my head, right? All the exciting things that I wanted to say. Leslie was not the tallest of humans. So I get to Leslie, she looks up. I'm not saying I look down on Leslie Feinberg, okay? That would just be rude. Look down a little bit. And I was about to say the things that I had practiced, and Leslie looked up and she said, "Great flat top." And I was like, my hair has been blessed by the gender pope. I do not know what will happen next. I also had the good fortune, I went to that conference, it must have been the same time. I had changed my name from my dead name, my birth name, to Shane. They obviously had met me under my dead name. So I went up to Minnie Bruce Pat and I said, "So good to see you. You probably don't remember me. I hosted blah, 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 Cornell." And I said, "You met me as this, dead name. I now go by this." And Minnie Bruce said, "That fits you so well." It's like, and now my name has been blessed by the Southern goddess, lesbian poet. So at that same conference, you know, if you're not binary, especially in this audience, think about all of the language that you hate and not having very good access to language you love. Right? Non-binary language is tricky, terrible stuff. Now roll back the clock 30 years. No, don't, let's not, well, we are going back. Let's try not to. So, Leslie and a panel of people held space to talk about how we didn't see ourselves in language. The other thing I should say about this particular conference is it was for people who were birth assigned female at birth, who were masculine to man identifying, mainly. Very few trans women, very male-oriented, masculine-oriented language sucks, kind of. So this room was full of people who were trying to be manly, for which crying is often not the thing. And we were talking about language, we were talking about how much we hated to be called ladies in particular, and how there wasn't a good ladies, gentlemen word, which we still don't have. And you could start to hear sniffling in the room. Just gentle sniffles here and there. And you could see people pulling for Kleenex or handkerchiefs and a little dabbing and dabbing. And as our time went on, the sniffling got more so. And so as we were just about to close, Leslie said, "It feels like there are a lot of emotions in the room." We're all like, yes. She said, just remember, you will never feel as alone again after you've spent this time together. And then it was just full out bawling. Thanks, that was not helpful for the sniffling. But it's why these gatherings, thank you so much, are so important, right? Like, community is important. Being with people who have some type of shared experience is important. So the next thing I did was another early kind of trans conference was Gender Odyssey. It used to be in Seattle. I don't know if it still exists anymore. And I gave a workshop 2 years called Finding Peace Living in the Gender Gray, because we didn't have language yet, right? I knew that I didn't want to transition, that my journey wasn't to become a man. I was terrible at being a woman. And so I was trying to live in this gray space, right? So let's just think about language just for a minute. I'm an educator by nature, so I'm sorry. I'm gonna put on my teacher hat. That's what I do. So 1994, I talk about living in the gender gray. Maybe about 2001, 2000, we started talking about gender variance. It sounds like something in a chemistry lab in a petri dish.
Right.
Behold the gender variant. Get the antiseptic spray. We then fortunately moved on, still not great, to gender non-conforming. What is gender conforming? Well, I'm watching the L series right now. You can judge me later. Gender conforming. That might be the definition of Pink Barbie, woman and gender. Then we moved to gender queer. Then we moved to gender non-binary. We now have so much language, right? Because we need language because we need to feel like our experience, that we have words for our experience. So gender expansive, not my favorite. Gender fluid, I love because it should be at every baby gender reveal. You should just take out a glass of water and be my baby. Gender fluid, right? Who knows what the next language will be? My hope is that the next language is gender, hello. And that we all have freedom to express our gender how we want, that we feel good in our bodies. Chaotic British schoolboy, I'm kind of liking. Might see more of it, right? So, of course I do. Hello, chunky chonk chonk. No shaming though. I have a chunky chonk at home. Hello. Anyway, and then one maybe final favorite story that goes kind of with the great hair is I was at another conference. Let's say I lived on the East Coast, so it was much easier to get to conferences than it is in Texas. You could drive a couple of hours and you'd be in a new place. Not to the Panhandle, 100 years later. And Kate Bornstein was there. And Stonebush Blues and Gender Outlaw were the first two books I read. Gender Outlaw was Kate's first book. And they became my religious text. I may have read them more than once. I grew up as a Christian Zionist, not a Scientologist. I did not grow up with Tom Cruise. I grew up as a Christian Zionist, and we have two religious texts. So I ran into Kate at the cake table, probably. And I said, Kate, I grew up with two religious texts, blah, blah, blah. My two new texts are Gender Outlaw, blah, blah, blah. She looked down. I had a tie with an elephant on it. I still have that tie. She's like, I love your tie. And my tie has been blessed. So the other great thing about talking to elders is that some of us have had the good fortune to meet our elders. So I try to carry the stories and bridge the generations because I wasn't lucky. I had economic privilege, let's just be really honest, and money to get places. And I want to share, right, what those experiences were for me. I'm not a historian for the community, but I am a historian for the path that I have walked for the last 32 years about my gender identity, 42 years around my sexual orientation, and 65 years as a flawed human on the planet. Thank you.